So welcome everybody to the Dunellen Walkable Community Workshop. My name is Lisa Cintron. I'm with the Voorhees Transportation Center. Just to let you know, we are recording this just for note-taking purposes and to share with anyone who might want to participate later. If you could keep your microphone on mute as we're going, it would help with any background noise. But of course, we do want you to speak up and participate, so just make note where that unmute button is. And if you need any help as we're going through, you can also feel free to use the chat and send a quick message over to us. So Mayor Salento, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, thank you everybody. This is Jason Salento, I'm the mayor of Dunellen. I know we have on the line Council Member Stacy Narveson as well. I just want to first start by extending a thank you to NJTPA, Rutgers University in Sustainable New Jersey for hosting this walkable study for us. We're very happy to have this. I also want to recognize Bill Leary, who's from Keep Middlesex Moving. We've been in conversation about this as well and thank him for his input. But the biggest thank you I want to say is to Julie Groff and Council Member Stacy Narveson, who helped put together this application and for us to get this study conducted. And I certainly want to recognize Council Member Narveson for helping lead the way on this since I've taken the new title as mayor. I do want to recognize the public that is on the line and thank them for participating in this study workshop. I think we'll get together some good information from the public. I want to recognize to everybody out there that we do plan to pave South Madison Avenue by this August. We've been out there to see the site with our engineers, CME. Lou is online, I believe, as well. And of course, we'll be taking into consideration this study's recommendations. But as a disclaimer, the public, resources limit what we may be implementing. But our main goal is how do we make this main corridor and all of Dunellen a more safe and walkable community for all. So thank you again, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from this workshop. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Excellent, absolutely. All right, so let's just go over our agenda real quick. So we'll start with some introductions and some background on what this project is. We'll talk about what a walkable community workshop is. Then we'll define complete streets. If everyone can just real quick raise your hand in the right-hand corner if you're familiar with what complete streets are. Yeah, you can just wave like that too. Okay, so it looks like we've got some people who are pretty familiar with complete streets, so it'll be a little bit of a review for you. But for those of you who aren't familiar, we're going to go through what they are so you're familiar. We'll go over what a pedestrian-friendly design is, and we'll learn how to conduct this walk audit so that you can not only do it on this corridor, but apply it to other corridors in the community. So then we'll conduct the virtual walk audit. We'll use Google Street View to walk along the corridor and talk about all of your experiences walking through the area. And then we'll come back, we'll debrief, and we'll talk about the next steps for the project. So this project is funded by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. It's called the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program. This year we're helping 8 communities. We helped an additional 9 communities in 2019. And so as I said earlier, my name's Lisa Cintron with the Voorhees Transportation Center. We also have NJTPA on the call with us. I believe Peter is here. And Keith, if either of you want to speak up and say a few words. Oh, Peter, you're muted. There we go.
Thank you, Lisa. This is Peter Bilton with the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. Just very briefly going to tell you what the NJTPA is. We're the federally authorized metropolitan planning organization for the Northern New Jersey region. That's 13 counties and 2 cities. And we help to oversee federal funding on transportation in that region, working in partnership with New Jersey DOT, New Jersey Transit, and other agencies, as well as providing planning support for towns and counties to help them plan for their transportation management and improvements. And so we sponsor and conduct studies like this one and assist county planning agencies. Let's see, that's about it for who we are. And Lisa's already filled you in on the background of this program. We're glad to continue it this year with an additional 8 communities.
Excellent. And then we also have Ann Heasley. Oops, sorry, pushing my slides the wrong direction. Ann Heasley from Sustainable Jersey, if you want to.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Heasley from Sustainable Jersey, and we're happy to partner with the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers, as well as NJTPA on this project. And you've already gotten some emails from me. Sustainable Jersey is helping facilitate this process. And you'll be getting some emails from me after this workshop to help keep you engaged in the project. So happy to be here, and thanks, Lisa.
Excellent. And now I just have my 2 colleagues from Voorhees Transportation Center with us. Ashna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Ashna Jain. I also work at the Voorhees Transportation Center, and I'll be helping out with this presentation. Thank you.
And then James Sinclair from the Voorhees Transportation Center.
Hi, everybody. I'm James Sinclair. I work with Lisa and Ashna. I'll be mostly listening today.
All right. So now if everyone could take a quick second and just type into the chat box your name and your affiliation. You could also include how long you've lived in the area, or maybe how often you walk around the area if you'd like. It's just easier probably to do this through chat than try to have everyone introduce speaking up. And do you want to give us some of the chat feedback? Oh, you're muted, Ann.
Sorry, I was just going to say I have Jason Slantro, the mayor, so he's typed in. Diana Stars, 25-year resident. That's excellent. And apologies if, as I go through, if I mess up your name. Bill Neary from Keep Middlesex Moving. Brandy Reed, a newer resident, 3 years. Gary Lubusco, the principal of the Faber Elementary School, and he's been working in the district for 20 years. Olivia, who moved into Dunellen, she might be the newest resident in December. And Lori Walsh, who's lived on Whittier Avenue for 32 years. Sherry Mua, and also a 30-year resident. We have a lot of long-term residents. This is great. Yeah. Louis Polanska from CME, the borough engineer, consulting engineer, and Terry Albertson, a 16-year resident and with the public library. Rachel Patel, a 7.5-year resident. Treeman Reed, 3-year resident on Walnut Street, 1 block away from the elementary school. No school zone signs and nothing to slow down traffic. So I'm sure hopefully we'll hear from Tremaine as we walk through. Stacy Darvison, the council person that helped get this project going, has lived in the borough for 8 years and walks this route almost every day. And Ken Bonden style, he's been in Dunellen since 1986. So that's a great list of participants. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yes, well, thank you. Welcome, everybody. So let's talk about what a walkable community workshop is. During the workshop, you'll learn about complete streets and walkability, and there will be plenty of breaks for questions, so you can ask them. You can unmute yourself, you can raise your hand, you can type into the chat window. We'll use these skills that you'll learn through this presentation to conduct the walk audit, and then we'll actually debrief and talk about some of the ideas that we've come up as we go along. And the ideas that we come up through this presentation will be organized into a report that will be shared with the community at the end of the project. So now I'm going to pass it over to Ashna to talk a little bit about what complete streets are.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. Lisa, does it look all right?
Yep, looks perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's start with discussing some of the basics of complete streets. As we asked the question earlier, many of you are already familiar with it. These concepts, we'll briefly go over them, and these are the things that we need to look for during the walk audit, and that is why it is important that everyone here is on the same page for them. Complete streets are designed and operated to enable safe access for all users. Pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, fleet and transit users of all ages and abilities must be able to safely move along and across a complete street. They make it easy for us to cross a street, walk to shop, or bicycle to work. A complete street gives the community a number of travel choices, connects to a wider network, and it's fully accessible to everyone regardless of how they get around. They look different in different places, and this is really important because a complete street reflects the need of a community. So how it looks like in Manhattan would be very different than how it looks like in Dunellen. What complete streets all have in common is that its end goal is improving safety for everyone. Their benefits are many and varied. They get people moving, which improves health, provide connections to local destinations, create more livable communities, reduce traffic congestion while offering alternatives to driving, and hence also reduce their reliance on carbon fuels, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. They also make fiscal sense because by incorporating sidewalks and bike lanes in the initial stages of a project, you spare the expenses of retrofitting later on, and they also encourage economic investment in the community. But how does a complete street actually create those benefits? The thing is, design affects what we do and how we do it and how happy we are doing it. The photo on the top here is from Dunellen. And does that look like a place where you would want to drive or walk? It's design that can affect your choice. And this is how, if you build for cars, you get cars. And if you build for people, you do get people. Here is let's think about a behavior that we are all familiar with, speeding. Why do people do it? Because they can. Because the wider streets and wider lanes tell people that it is okay and safe to speed. Here is a real world example. These 4 sections are all from Route 9 Ocean County. See the design of these roads and try to guess in your mind the speed limit on these roads, going from image 1 to 2, then image 3, and the last image 4. Now we'll look at the actual speed limit on these roads. It might be hard to believe, but these examples vary significantly in their posted speed limit. The image 1 is 50, image 2 is 35, 3 is 40, and 4 is 25 miles per hour. Could you tell by looking at these images that their speed limit varies from 25 to 50? If you want drivers to slow down, you usually need more than just a speed limit. You should take the speed limit into account in the planning and design of a road. Later in this presentation, we'll cover some concepts that will show you how to slow drivers down. Since this is a walkability workshop, let's focus on pedestrian-friendly design that covers how do you get people to walk places. But before we do that, let's look at what pedestrian-friendly design is not. Does anyone here would want to take a stroll down the street, go for an evening walk, or a morning jogging? Probably not. For pedestrian-friendly design, think of places where you do enjoy walking. What do they offer? They offer interesting things to look at, plenty of space to walk, spaces to sit, and shade, and in many cases, natural beauty and interesting architecture. These places engage all of your senses. They smell great, they are safe, and they have interesting like activities going around that spike your curiosity. They get you to look up from your phones. Again, remember that design affects behavior, and our design decisions can affect if we choose to walk. Enter this building, and what are you going to do? Take these elevators or take these stairs? Most likely the elevators, because the design of the building with that big, huge lobby and all the elevators in the front is telling you to take the elevators. On the flip side, in this building, most people would want to take the stairs. It will definitely also have an elevator for people who need it, but the design here points you to the stairs. And sure enough, that's what most people will do. Design also affects our perception of distance. What is too far to walk? A quarter mile? A half mile? Did anyone here go shopping on Black Friday or a busy shopping day and have to park at the far end of the mall? Didn't that walk feel like horribly long? But wait, once you step inside the walk, you walk many times the distance without even thinking about it. This is because the people designing the malls know what they are doing. They are using the same concepts that we talked before. They engage all your senses. They provide a comfortable temperature, although this is one thing that we cannot control in outdoor spaces. They also provide seating, and they are well lit and feel safe. Keep these principles in mind when we talk about our public spaces. Next, let's take a look at the pedestrian realm on a street. It starts from the property line to the curb, and only a portion of it is actually a walking, like a free walking space. It has subzones. First, there is a building frontage zone, so that's the space right next to the building that will have all the entering and exiting from the buildings, and sometimes also furniture and plants. And then there is a throughway zone, which is the actual walking area of the sidewalk. After that, there is a furnishing zones with some plantings, and in the today's COVID-19 situation, outdoor dining. And lastly, there is the curb edge with the parking meters and so on. In a suburban area, you generally have the sidewalk and then the planted area. We'll also talk about ADA in detail later. As we discussed earlier, walking can be made more comfortable by thinking about the pedestrian amenities, which once you install on a street depends on the context, but the more comfortable it is to walk, the more likely people will do it. This includes being wide enough for people to walk, having a shade, having a shelter, proper lighting and seating, and other amenities. Pedestrian safety. Remember that a complete street is usable by everyone, and that includes those with disabilities. ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, sets rule on how to design public spaces to be accessible for everyone. Ever see people walking in the street when a sidewalk is right there? It's likely that people are doing it because the sidewalk has problems or is not usable for some reasons. So here are some basics. Sidewalks need to be at least 36 inches, which is like about 3 feet in width. But the standard usually is 5 feet. Wider is better so people can walk together, and sometimes the usable width is a little bit different because it's like maybe it has a wall next to it, or maybe it has a traffic lane next to it for such reasons. As we conduct the audit, think about those in wheelchairs. Is the sidewalk wide enough for them? Is there a slope? Are there obstructions like cracks or steps that can make the sidewalk not usable for people in wheelchairs or people with strollers? Also think about how the blinds navigate. Are there protruding objects which can make it hard or unsafe for them? Even if a sidewalk was originally built correctly, maintenance is really important in keeping its usability. It may no longer be accessible due to degraded maintenance. So we need to check for if the surface is smooth. Are there any other issues? During the walk audit, we need all like similar problems to be recorded. Steep grades and cross slopes can be hazardous for all users, but particularly those with limited mobility. As you walk down the corridor, think about what it would feel like to walk along a slanted sidewalk with a stroller or a wheelchair. While grades are often difficult to maintain and not control in all the situations, every effort should be made to provide as level a surface as possible. Severe cross slopes require wheelchair users and other pedestrians to work against the gravity to maintain their balance, and can cause wheelchairs to veer towards the curb and onto the street. So it could be really dangerous. Lastly, best practice is for the sidewalk to continue across this driveway, so the drivers feel that they are crossing the sidewalk and it's not the either way around. Every intersection can present a serious challenge for the disabled. Are the ramps built properly, oriented the right way? Ramps, they should face the crosswalk, they should not be too steep, and must have a smooth transition to the asphalt, and must have truncated domes. Those yellow bumpy things, they let the blind people know that they're about to exit the sidewalk and enter the street. Note that we don't need to be an engineer to immediately spot a ramp or a maintenance issue that does not meet standards, like in this first photo. Intersections can be dangerous places, and their safety and visibility of pedestrians crossing it is really crucial. One quick and low-cost way to increase the visibility of pedestrians is to upgrade the crosswalk striping. The top image here depicts a standard crosswalk. The middle one is continental, and the last one is ladder. The only difference between them is the quantity of the paint, and the more the paint, the higher the visibility. However, note that the ladder crosswalk may trap water and that could freeze. Here are some photos of crosswalk treatments found in New Jersey. The left bottom one is a textured crosswalk, and then we have a raised intersection in the corner and an in-pavement lighting option. Crosswalk design should follow the path pedestrians normally take and should not expect them to detour. They should be lit from above. Their width should depend on pedestrian volume. Signs are helpful, and safety islands are valuable on wider street. For example, look at this top right image with the safety island. Another way to improve safety at intersections is to build sidewalk extensions. They reduce vehicle speeds, decrease crossing distances, limit illegal parking near corners, and improve visibility. Sidewalk extensions should be properly designed to accommodate buses and trucks wherever appropriate. This is how vehicles, parking vehicles near the corners creates a danger by limiting visibility for all roadway users. Look at how this car is only a half a car distance away from the crosswalk, but it cannot see the people who are just about to enter the sidewalk. And similarly, the people cannot see the car. And this can create a dangerous situation. And this is why limiting illegal parking near corners is really important, where sidewalk extensions can help. Here is a real world example. Can you see that there is a pedestrian about to enter the crosswalk? Yeah, there is a person right here behind the car, kind of hiding. And this is where treatments such as bike corrals or parklets or a curb extension can ensure visibility by preventing vehicles from parking too close to the crosswalk. This is some examples of a variety of ways in which sidewalk extensions can be implemented, from high-cost ways, looking at the top left image, using concrete and permanent concrete and planting methods, to low-cost ways, for example, in the bottom right image with paint and bollards. You can also combine a curb extension with more expensive infrastructure like a hawk signal, that is high intensity activated crosswalk beacon. Like this one in Westfield. The signal actually stops the traffic before a pedestrian enters the street to cross it. Similarly, a diagonal crosswalk can also be an option on a busy intersection, or where you see a lot of people moving from one corner of the street to the another. A leading crosswalk gives pedestrians the green light before cars. Let's pause for a minute. Any questions about sidewalks and pedestrians?
I noticed James Sinclair said something about a raised crosswalk and a combination of speed bump and crosswalk. What's the stipulations for townships to implement something like that at a crosswalk? Do you need residents' approvals with petitions? Do you need the county Department of Transportation to come and do a survey? But if it's a township road, can that just be something that we budget for when we repave streets?
Oh, that's a good question. I am actually not sure. James, can you answer it?
Yes. So if it's on a local street, it's up to your municipality to budget for it and build it. You don't need approval. Things that do need to be taken into consideration are if buses or trucks are using that roadway, emergency vehicles, school buses. And if so, it can be designed to accommodate them. It can't be too steep. You also need to take into account drainage issues with raised crosswalks and speed bumps. And that can sometimes be one of the most expensive aspects of installing it. But there's ways around dealing with the drainage and all that. It's just some engineering is involved.
Am I still on mute?
We can hear you.
Okay, this is Bill Neary. One of the other concerns you have on your residential streets is maybe the people who live by those intersections are not going to be happy about hearing a ba-dum all night long either. So it's also make sure the neighborhood understands what the changes will be in terms of the noise factors in the on the particular corner.
Yeah, I don't think that would be an issue. I've actually spoken to over 100 people in the immediate area of a few key points, and I don't think any resident of any of the streets would be in disagreement with having raised sidewalks in particular.
The important thing is you've communicated to them. That's good.
Yep.
And one last thing to add is also snow plowing is a concern, but that's something that can be dealt with as well, with training of the plow people and making sure, they know where it is, and making sure the design is, New Jersey friendly and not like a Florida design. So they can definitely be designed for snow. It just has to be taken into account.
James, is there a document that we can potentially look at to see what those requirements are as far as height that you were referring to?
Not at the very moment, but we can definitely find one and get it to you.
Great, thank you.
What would be the concern of diverting traffic to other streets, to people who become familiar with the streets that have speed bumps?
Yeah, I think from...
this is a question for the professional team.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a concern. You'll have people, we were going to go over speed bumps more in depth in a little bit, but that was one of the concerns, is that people learn how to go around them too. Right, but if it's a good thing to have less traffic on one road, maybe right in front of the school, it might make sense. There's a lot of considerations for the speed bumps.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Never, no.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? If not, then I'm going to head into the bicycle portion. All right, so this is a walk audit, but we're talking about complete streets, so we also have to think about bicyclists too. So designing for bicycles means reducing conflict, creating visibility, and establishing clear guidelines on the right of way. So this is very similar to the pedestrian improvements as well. So does anyone here know the laws related to where bicyclists can travel in New Jersey and where they can and cannot go? Does anyone want to jump in and try to answer this? No? So bicyclists are allowed to ride on every roadway except for interstate highways and some state highways. So here in Dunellen, bicyclists are, I believe they're allowed on every road, as you don't have any highways cutting through the town. So how can we make riding a bicycle safer for people in Dunellen? There are a lot of design options, including sharrows, bicycle boulevards, bicycle lanes. We'll go over all of these in the coming slides. So shared lane markings, as you see in the photo on on the right here in Patterson were proposed for or shared. So I believe that Dunellen has some shared lane markings in their road in the township, but maybe not with the green square around it like this, but it just signifies to the biker that this is where they're safely able to ride, and it lets the drivers know that the bicyclist is allowed to use this much of the roadway. So a super sharrow is basically an experimental treatment that just increases the visibility of the sharrow. You can see this green version on the right here. It just very clearly states to the driver and the bicyclist that this whole lane is for the bicyclist as well. So bicycle boulevards, they use a combination of signage and other design treatments to basically prioritize the bicycle travel. So these are usually better for secondary roads, slower roads with less traffic, where you want to be able to let the bicyclists cut through in this particular area. They can be a great way to create an attractive bicycle route to popular destinations, so like the train station or a local elementary school like you have in Dunellen along the route. So a bicycle lane is a space that's designated only for bicyclists. You need at least 4 feet next to the curb, or at least 5 feet if there's street parking. But the wider the bicycle lane, the more comfortable it is for more types of users. And if there's a buffer between the lane and the traffic lane, the vehicle lane, it would make it even more comfortable for more types of users, especially when you're talking about going to connecting bicyclists to elementary schools. So then, as I mentioned, protected bicycle lanes are even more comfortable for less experienced bicyclists. So it adds even more safety by putting a barrier between the bicyclist and the motorist, but you need at least 8 feet, and they really work best if there aren't too many driveways or turning conflicts along the route. But special care also needs to be taken at intersections so that the bicyclist traveling through, as you can see in this bottom right-hand corner, the lane sort of becomes dotted lines through the intersection, because you need to be able to have the vehicles cross over the lane. Then the next level of safety would be a bicycle path, which allows two-way traffic. And it can be on the road or it can be next to the road, but it needs to be at least 10 feet wide, because you have the two ways of traffic traveling through it. And it's really important for a bicycle path to really minimize the turning conflicts. So you can see how when the bicycle path goes through the intersection here, it's a lot more clearly marked compared to the standard bike path. There are a few other bicycle options which help the bicyclist to make left turns, like this bicycle box, and bicycle signals, which you see in the middle picture, which also try to remove turning conflicts for bicyclists. Bike parking is also really important. If you want students to ride their bikes to school, they need to have a place to store their bike while they're at school. You can also use these bicycle parking as an opportunity to create additional safety. As we mentioned earlier, it increases the visibility of the crosswalk if you place it just right. So you can have bicycle parking and improved pedestrian safety in an area at the same time. So do we have any questions about some of the bicycle opportunities that are available?
Lisa, do you mind if I make a statement?
Oh, sure.
As part of what we're doing, because South Madison, as I stated, is being paved in August. Part of the section that is not part of this corridor, the study, will have striping that helps narrow the road, which obviously slows down traffic. But part of it would be sharrows for bicycle use. But the town just applied through the state NJDOT for pedestrian safety bike routes and paths throughout the town. So hopefully we do get those funds, but I just want to make a note that we did apply for bike routes throughout town.
Excellent. And we're going to go over some of the designs that we sent in later on in the presentation too, just so that people can see what some of these ideas are. And then I see in the chats that it looks like all kids walk to the school because there's no busing, correct? Or they're dropped off by parents. My very little experience in Dunellen is I saw a lot of kids just riding bicycles for fun. It seemed like it's a pretty active community of bicyclists, more so than other towns maybe.
And Lisa, there is a question too about riding on sidewalks.
Oh, if they're allowed to ride on sidewalks? Sorry, I didn't see it. Oh, what about riding on sidewalks? So I'm not sure if there's any specific ordinance in Dunellen with regards to riding on sidewalks, but I believe that statewide you're allowed to ride on sidewalks unless there's a specific ordinance that you cannot ride on the sidewalk in the town. I don't know if anyone from Dunellen knows if there's an ordinance anywhere in the town about no bicycles on the sidewalk.
I don't believe there is, but our administrator is on the line, so he might have more insight to that.
But otherwise, the standard is you're allowed to have the bicycles on the sidewalk, even though it may not be the safest option, especially with the narrow sidewalks.
This is Bill. I'm going to check the code right now.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, while he's checking the code, let's talk a little bit about public transportation. There we go. So many of the pedestrian improvements that we've mentioned earlier basically relate the same to public transportation. So bus and train passengers often have to at least use a crosswalk to get to the bus or the train, to get to either to the bus or the train or to their final destination. And actually about 7% of Dunellen residents use public transportation to get to work. So what are the key components of a successful transit system? It's got to be reliable, frequent, and there has to be comfortable service. So complete streets that accommodate public transportation passengers can address some of these components. So we'll go over those. So in terms of comfort, picture yourself heading to a bus on a snowy day. So which bus stop would you be more comfortable using? The one on the right, where you're out in the elements and there's nothing to cover you, or the one on the left where you're back away from the traffic and maybe the puddles of the melting snow and you're covered and protected? So bus shelters that provide a place for passengers to wait and to sit in comfort and security that are protected from the elements are just more comfortable. And they should include seating, lighting. Travel information is excellent to include as well, such as wayfinding or even real-time arrival, if that's possible. But all bus stops must be accessible to all users, including those with limited mobility. So a well-designed and visible signage and bus stop is the best option for public transportation users. Sorry, there we go. So in terms of buses, I'm not sure that this really applies to this section of Dunellen, but just so you know, there are opportunities to really enhance the bus route. So marked bus lanes can provide a dedicated space for buses in the street, and you usually distinguish it by colored pavement, like the image on the left, or different textured pavement or signage. And bus lanes should be at least 11 feet wide when there is no buffer. And they can be a little bit narrower if there is. So this is just an option for areas with high bus traffic. So do we have any public transportation questions? I'm just checking the chats real quick. It looks like we can head right into reducing speeding. Okay, so let's look at how to design for lower speeds. So when you look at a roadway, wider equals faster. So usually you have a 13-foot lane for major highways, 11 feet for faster roads, and 10 feet for local roads, because it signifies how fast the drivers are comfortable going. So aside from lowering the lane width, you can narrow the view. So vertical design makes it feel like you're going even faster. So if we look at this picture here, you can see how trees act as a vertical element that can reduce speeding by heightening the sense of the speed of the drivers passing by the trees, sorry. Later in the presentation, we'll talk about other ways to slow drivers down using modern designs as well. So there are a number of speed strategies. So the first that are related to actual infrastructure. So the first would be a road diet, which is a popular strategy for roads that are much wider than they should be, which may be an opportunity for some of the streets in the Dunellen corridor. So the most common type takes a 4-lane roadway and converts it to 2 lanes, like in this picture up top. It converts it to 2 lanes with a center turning lane, and you have opportunities on either side to either extend the sidewalk or install bicycle lanes. You just have more opportunity, more space to work with at that point. And it can actually reduce congestion in an area with a lot of left-hand turns, like in this picture below. It just increases the safety for all users by providing this dedicated turning space. So other road diets can reallocate space for parking, for wider sidewalks. You can also use green space in the extra space that's made available, or bicycle facilities. So the idea is just to ensure a roadway that's designed for all users. So speed bumps. When it comes to vertical speed control, speed bumps are an option. Everybody is pretty much familiar with the speed bump. As we mentioned earlier, they can be really effective, but they're controversial because they can get loud. They can divert traffic to other streets. And then there are some maintenance issues, as we mentioned earlier. Alternatively, you can use a speed cushion, which has a softer speed bump, which allows drivers to go approximately 20 miles an hour instead of 10 miles an hour. And it has a gap for emergency vehicles to get through so that they don't have to go over the bump. And then, as we mentioned, the raised crosswalks. This is basically a speed table. It's flat on the top, and then you can use it to build a crosswalk that's the same height as the sidewalk on either side, which is actually better for those using wheelchairs or maybe pushing a stroller. Now, in terms of horizontal speed control, you have these neck downs or chicanes that are just a series of raised or delineated curb extensions. You can see this example in Morristown, where they just narrowed the road by extending the curb in a bit because they were having a speeding issue. You can see it from another angle here. It doesn't necessarily narrow the travel lane, but it narrows the road and just makes the driver a little bit more aware about how fast they're going. Here's a more elaborate chicane, which actually makes you turn around navigate through the chicane so that you slow down a bit as you're going through. So forcing tighter turns is also another way to slow drivers down, and it also creates more pedestrian space. So you see as the driver comes around this turn, they can't take it quite as fast as they would have if it were maybe where that original brick line was. They could take the turn they have to take the turn a lot slower, which gives them more of an opportunity to notice pedestrians that are entering the crosswalk. As mentioned in the bicycle boulevard section, traffic diverters are also a great way to restrict a roadway to only local traffic and bicycles too. And you can also notice the planting on the right here. It's a great opportunity to put in some beautiful green infrastructure as well. And speaking of green streets, these elements can be incorporated into a project to provide environmental benefits. So they reduce stormwater runoff and flooding, and they can achieve long-term infrastructure savings and infrastructure costs. And they can make an area more beautiful and create additional shade. So do we have any questions about speeding? Oh, and it looks like there's nothing in the Dunellen code prohibiting bicycles on sidewalks. So that's our answer for the bicyclists.
Lisa, are any of the speed bumps not good for bicyclists? So if we want to encourage bicycling and we don't want them on the sidewalk and you put a speed bump across the street, what's the best for those and what's more of a hazard for them?
Right, what would be more of a hazard for a bicyclist? James, do you want to talk a little bit about the speed bumps and bicycling?
Sure. So, I mean, if we talk about speed bumps, there's two types that most people are familiar with. The really severe ones you find in like parking lots and stuff. But for public roadways, they're going to be the much flatter, smoother ones. So the parking lot ones really slow people down to like 2 miles per hour. You really pretty much have to stop. The ones you would put on a public roadway slow you down to 15, 20 miles per hour. So for a bike, they're not so bad. But Lisa also showed an example of a speed bump that had a gap in it for emergency vehicles. And of course, bicyclists would likely use it as well by using the slot, like in this picture. The only challenge is someone a cargo bike, but it's not too much of a big deal.
Okay.
Okay, any other bike questions? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about street lighting. So we're conducting this walk audit during the day. Well, we're using Google Street View, which took photos during the day. So it's important to remember that the day and night conditions are going to be different, dramatically different in certain instances. So lighting is not only a safety issue in terms of visibility, it also improves the security, the personal security of the pedestrian as they're walking through down a given roadway. So if you take note in this picture here, that the overhead hanging light, I don't know if you can see my mouse over the street lamp here. This is actually called a Cobra light in your walk audit form. Just as you're going through and you're filling out the walk audit form, it'll ask you whether there's what type of overhead lighting and if Cobra is one of them, and that's what we're talking about here. And the Cobra lighting shines the light down towards the pedestrian realm, and so does pedestrian pole lighting if it has that cap on the top. Now, if we look at this photo of a nighttime sidewalk, you have these incidental lightings from different places, but overall it's a pretty uncomfortable space to be in as a pedestrian. You don't seem very visible, and there are a lot of very dark and hard to see locations along the corridor there. And again, as I said earlier, you want to make sure that your lights are lighting up the pedestrian realm and not necessarily the sky. This light on the left is beautiful, but the light on the right is really doing a better job of focusing on the pedestrian realm. So now let's talk real quick about conducting the walk audit. When you're conducting the audit, it's important to take photos, it's important to take notes. They're really important for looking back at remembering how you felt along the way and what was good or what was bad about the experience. It's a great way to learn about how the street might look at different times or hours too. If anyone had access to a speed gun and could see what speed cars were driving by on, that would have been that's an excellent tool to use. Other measuring tools can also add value to the information that you collect as you're going along this walk audit. But of course, if you take this walk audit and go out into the street on your own, just always be careful with traffic. In terms of taking good photos, you want to make sure that you get the whole context of where you're taking the picture. These are great pictures that there are some maintenance issues, but looking back maybe a week or two later, we won't really know where they are. So it's important to make sure that you get the whole area. Now, when we walk the audit, we have 4 sections. So we have the walk audit that walks you through High Street, then along Walnut, then South Madison Avenue and South Avenue, and then the last section of the audit will go over Madison Avenue. Now, this is the point in the presentation where we want you to unmute yourselves and speak and let us know what works in your community, what doesn't, and what it really feels like to be walking along this corridor. And you can complete these audits as we're walking through now, or you can come back and do them a bit later. But before we jump into the audits, I just wanted to go over, I'm going to pass it over to James to go over a few of the designs that have already been put together for a few different areas around the corridor, not necessarily within the corridor. So James, do you want to talk real quick about these designs?
Yep, so just as a quick background, usually we try not to do any design work until after we complete the audit and the meeting like this. But because, as the mayor mentioned, repaving is planned for later this summer, we wanted to get some initial concepts out so the town had time to review it and discuss with the engineer and so forth. So as Leisha's showing you, we actually looked at South Madison Avenue from top to bottom, and I'll just briefly discuss some of the recommendations, which included improving sight lines, adding the sharrows, shared lane markings, upgrading the crosswalks, and adding the on-road sidewalk at least in areas where parking is always prohibited by state law, but potentially extending it further. And also, sorry, Lisa, I forget, do you look at the intersection? Does the next slide have more pictures? Okay, yes. So moving up in the document we sent the town, we just looked at each intersection and again, looking at sort of extending those crosswalks, continuing the on-road sidewalk for a little bit longer and adding the sharrows. And then the next one, Lisa, there's pretty much the same issue, adding those sharrows, adding the enhanced crosswalks. For that northern portion there, where there is a sidewalk, we proposed fitting in a bike lane since you're able to, I believe the road is actually a little wider up there. So you can still fit everything in and keep a bike lane in one direction. And then the next one, Lisa, and then up here on South Ave and South Madison Avenue, we proposed a curb extension, which can be a painted curb extension at first, because that is very low cost and can be accomplished with just paint and signage. But in the future, it could be built out in concrete to decrease the size of that intersection, make the crosswalks a little shorter, realign one of the crosswalks so it's shorter and also further away from the curve, and encourage people to take that turn a little slower. So for the rest of today, since we want to focus on the corridor that's shown on the map on the right, we want to leave any questions related to the other designs at the end once we finish the corridor, just so we don't run out of time.
Excellent.
Keep in
Okay.
mind.
So now I'm going to show the walk audit form, which you all should have gotten in the email ahead of time, but it's also linked in the chat and sent it just now. So this is our walk audit form that you can print out. It starts with section 1. It's going to ask the same questions throughout. It'll start with the design questions. How many lanes are there? Is there a median? It'll go into driver behavior, the sidewalk conditions. What is the quality of the sidewalks? Are there sloping problems? Then it'll talk about curb cuts and ramps. Are there any missing ADA ramps? How is the signage along the route? What type of parking? So when you look at near the elementary school, you would say angled parking. Amenities, are there benches, trash cans, lighting? What are the trees like? There's some space for additional notes, and then you'll go through the exact same thing for section 2. So we will start off with our discussion on High Street. So this is right in front of the elementary school. So I noticed you have this beautiful crosswalk here, a ladder crosswalk that just continues as a sidewalk straight down High Street. Is anyone familiar with this area and can speak a little bit to what it's like walking through here? Maybe specifically during school times or even not, regular times is fine too.
Well, fortunately, there's a crossing guard there during school days. And then walking down Lehigh, it's not horribly bad. There's not much protection for the pedestrians walking down, but it is a one-way street, so you don't have traffic coming both ways. So it's wide enough where traffic goes by fairly easy. The only problem is when school is letting out cars park, pretty much up to the corner on both sides, on this and where Lehigh meets South Madison Avenue. They park right up to the corner to go pick up their children. So it gets a little crazy, but it's not horribly bad because that walkway that's painted all the way down Lehigh is fairly wide. So it leaves probably more space than a sidewalk does to walk on.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of, it's not the smoothest surface to
No.
walk on,
Right.
but at
It's
least
not-
it's,
Yeah. And as you can see, it's not well painted. It, doesn't get painted every year, or it only gets painted every few years.
got it.
But you
My
can see
experience
down,
is also
you
the residents actually park on that street in front of their house on that crosswalk. I actually live a block and a half away. I don't
Right,
have
like
a
up here.
student in the school like Stacy does, but I do walk my dog and my 3-year-old through this neighborhood often, several times of day. And when school was in session, there would be cars parked on that crosswalk. So kids typically would avoid this street because the next intersection is actually a very busy speed trap. So I find a lot of students walking the opposite way down High Street, down to Walnut Street, and then over the other way. So I don't see a lot of foot traffic coming this way because the next intersection, there's no stop signs there for the oncoming traffic from South Madison. There's only a stop sign on Lehigh, the one-way street.
So if I could just pipe in, I do pick up my kids from the elementary school and I do walk that way sometimes, whichever way the kids want to go. And cars are not parked there when school's being let out. They are parked there during the off times when school's not being, not in the beginning of school and not at the end of school. It's the crosswalk area is open during dismissal time.
Got it. So the crosswalk is available for pedestrians to walk down during the school let out times. But then when it's not school time, I guess there's no sidewalks on this road. So I guess people are just walking on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
okay.
Lisa, the superintendent said that the traffic is generally at a standstill during drop off and pickup.
Oh, so there's no speeding issues, but.
I have to say, I walk through there a lot, both when school's in session and not, and it usually looks like this during the day when school's not in session. Not a lot of traffic, and I don't see a lot of speeding going through there. The bad thing I found, I sub at the school, is the diagonal parking when you're trying to pick up or drop off or leave, to try to back out into that big line of traffic waiting to pick up and drop off the kids is an issue. With people walking behind the cars to get to their cars instead of walking on the sidewalk and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Is the diagonal parking, is it used to its full capacity?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So people are parking along the street here, and are they using the parking areas in the school, the parking lot?
That's for teachers.
Mm.
So,
Okay,
so residents have two choices. They either park diagonally there and walk with their child to the school, or they could pull in front of school and actually physically drop them off at the door.
Right. Okay.
Lisa, I just wanted to say one possibility for the diagonal parking would actually be to switch it. So instead of drivers pulling in and then having to back out, which could be difficult, they would back into it and then pull out, which is actually a safer one. It can be a little confusing for people the first time because they're so used to pulling into the parking spot, but it definitely makes it easier to leave because you have full visibility as a driver, and you're less likely to hit a child because you can see more.
Right. It's something that they did. I can't remember the name of the town. It starts with an M. But they did it in the downtown area, was the back-in parking.
Yep, and it maintains the exact same amount of spaces. It just switches the diagonal orientation for the other direction.
Superintendent's letting you know it's Milburn.
Oh, thank you. Alternatively, go ahead, Ann, what were you saying?
No, I was just going to say, Gary, you can use your microphone, but you also mentioned that you're encouraging walking and biking. And many parents park on adjacent streets and walk over.
Right. And so I guess if the school were encouraging biking and walking, then maybe an alternative would be put some kind of bike infrastructure on this road, but it would replace some of the parking. So it's something to consider, but right.
Okay, so, and then Julie mentions that one of the reasons people don't walk on the sidewalk is because when they park, their cars park the overhang. This is a very narrow sidewalk, and the parking prevents people from using that sidewalk. And Gary is not talking because he can't right now. So thank you for in the chat, and we'll keep adding your comments, Gary.
Absolutely. Okay, all right, that's good to know though about the parking causing issues on the sidewalk. Okay, any other comments before we head down the street a bit? So here we go down to where the road narrows. And so you only have the sidewalk on the one side still. And what I noticed was that the sidewalk is pretty slanted and very challenging to maneuver, I would imagine, if you were in any type of, if you had a stroller or a wheelchair or anything. Does anyone have any experience walking down this area?
Recently.
Just normal sidewalk. I don't have any any concerns necessarily. It's just normal sidewalk. As you can see, there's patches on the sidewalk. It's not always a smooth surface, but
yeah. And the sidewalks don't continue across the driveways here.
No, they do not.
Right.
And it's a pretty narrow sidewalk considering that you're headed straight to the elementary school and there's only a sidewalk on one side.
Lisa, just so you know, you are walking against traffic, right? I mean, this is a one-way street going the other way, just for your bearings.
Right, yes.
Okay.
It's a one-way headed down this way, towards the school.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, just wanted to know there was a request for a Microsoft Word version of the audit, so I provided a link in the chat box.
Right, and yeah, you can type right into that. It's probably a little annoying, but we'll get all your feedback if you just type it into it. So what about this? I noticed at this intersection, there's only a crosswalk across the one side of the street here.
One thing about that is right there at the end of the sidewalk, when it rains, it floods. There's always a huge amount of water there.
Right.
And there's only a crosswalk there because there's no sidewalk on the other side.
Right. And there's no, oh, I see. So you have the crosswalk to get to the sidewalk on that side. Yeah. And it seems like this was a pretty low traffic road right here. Walnut?
That's incorrect.
No, it's pretty.
Oh, it's busy during school.
No, that's incorrect also, Ken. It's busy every day of the week. I live on Walnut and I just heard 9 cars go by in the last 30 seconds flying.
I know, but if you make a left off of here, it's basically a dead end. It comes to an end. So not too many people go straight.
No, that's still incorrect.
This section of Walnut, if I can speak on my experience, because I grew up on it for 30 years. Yeah. This section is a little bit slower than the section of where Mr. Reed lives, because a lot of people make a choice to go right or left. But would I say Walnut is one of the less used streets in town? No, it's a busier street, but I would say this section is less used than going, what would it be, east of South Madison.
Right.
But,
and is there a crossing guard here during school hours too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's extremely good too. I like
Oh,
that.
good. And in terms of traffic during school hours, does it get stopped up around here?
Oh, God, yes.
Yes.
You don't try to get across town during,
You never back out your
when
driveway.
it's right before dropping off at Faber. Over half the kids get dropped off.
Right.
It's
right. So there's definitely
frustrating thing.
So
sorry. Okay. We have a comment from Julie Graf that there are student bikers on the sidewalks. when people are walking to and from school, given it's a one-way street, and they need to bike on the sidewalk to travel away from the school.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, so now traveling down Walnut here, it seems like the sidewalk is pretty much, it's very similar to the sidewalk along High Street. And now we'll just come up to this intersection up here. Which it looks like might need some updated paint for the crosswalks along here, but otherwise, and maybe some updated curb ramps. We're heading down this way with the walk on it. Does anyone have any experience at this, walking through this intersection?
Very dangerous for any kid that would be walking to school without a parent.
I'm sure there's a crossing guard here, yeah?
There is.
Right.
Still very dangerous. The crossing guard at that particular area has had several incidents of close calls.
Right, because the traffic doesn't stop.
It does not stop
right.
Coming down Madison.
And it's a pretty wide road here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So any recommendations or ideas for this intersection here?
Stop sign.
Yeah.
Have a four-way stop.
Bike lanes. Bike lanes. If we want kids to bike to school, we have to make it safer.
Yeah.
Parents don't want to let them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be safe if we want them to bike to school. And if we get them to bike to school, maybe we can get a few more cars off the road.
I like to see speed humps at that intersection.
Absolutely.
4 speed humps. Ideally. I actually live next door to that woman. I'm actually helping her cut those trees back come this fall.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, she's a retired elderly woman. She doesn't have the means to do so. So we're trying to come up with a plan.
To make the visibility there better?
Yeah, it's a blind spot.
Oh, that's good to know. Right. So I think if there's a 4-way stop, there's ways to make the stop signs, you can have lighted stop signs, and you can even have lights within the crosswalk, the pavement of the crosswalk. I mean, we can certainly explore speed bumps here, but there's other steps that you could also take before you maybe make the decision for a speed bump.
Yeah, so I would, the only thing, and I'm not saying I'm not in favor of speed bumps or 4-way stops, but the traffic volume going to school, if you have a 4-way stop, you think it's bad now, it's going to really be bad. It's going to back up quite a bit. So just something to consider when making a final decision.
Got it.
I also believe this is where it turns into a county road heading east. So
no, that's at Prospect. That's okay. 1 more block, 2 more blocks the opposite way. This is still a town road.
Right down that way. Okay, so you can still make your changes here.
The only other thing I was going to ask, oftentimes in this crosswalk that's nearest to us at the bottom of the screen, there's the pedestrian crosswalk sign, but it's not permanent, and oftentimes it's moved to the corner or into the grass. So if we could do something to make the fact that this is a pedestrian walkway more permanent.
Got it. Right, and that's where maybe a lighted crosswalk or right, like just a lit up sign or lighting in the pavement, not a traffic light.
I'm in on that exact point. There is a child pedestrian right in the middle. In fact, it was there this morning. If you could move your arrow, I know you can't see my finger here, to the left side of the crosswalk. I just turned around. My point is that when I was coming to work this morning, the separation between the sidewalk there on South Madison and that child crossing sign is narrow, but there's a brown van probably owned by someone in one of the houses going toward the firehouse, which further narrowed the ability to cross on the right side, and cars were even passing on the left. This happens also with if there's a child sign at Walnut in South Madison. You don't know which side of the road you should travel around it, especially if you're making a left turn onto Lehigh to finish. I don't know if it's possible, but yellow paint extending a little bit further to prohibit parking so close to the corner might keep that brown van from blocking and narrowing the arteries, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to agree with Bill, and I think based on the other plans, we did a walk on the plans that you had provided us for north, well, I don't know, I guess it'd be south on South Madison from Walnut. And the striping, instead of just having the curb painted yellow, we discussed striping those sections towards the intersection to limit the vehicles parking and limiting the sight line for individuals as well, also cars making the turns. So yeah, that's a pretty good idea with that.
Yeah, you can see that brown car, that's further down from the tree. If you can imagine a brown van at the tree itself, and the child sign in the middle of the road, pretty much where the crosswalk is, it's interesting traveling around it.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we had yellow paint on the travel lane, you would, not the travel lane, on the roadway, it would be more visually strong, because right now you can see there's a yellow curb there, but clearly it's not working.
No, or no parking of 25 feet to curb, whatever you can get away with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to note the sign right where that red car is actually indicates you can park closer to the curb. So it's not the correct sign since it's got an arrow going both ways. So that can add a little bit to the confusion.
Oh.
Hey, Bill, that's Greg's house. I actually have his wheelbarrow. When I return it later today, I can have him move his van. I'm sure he'll be more than willing to do so and park in the driveway.
All right, Trey, thank you.
Hopefully he listens to me. I don't know. We'll see.
I think Brian will listen. Don't worry.
Yeah. I'm sure they didn't mean to make it unsafe.
Oh, no, Brian's a friend. But thank you, Trey.
Yeah. Okay, so let's continue down South Madison a little bit. We're headed towards the firehouse now. Again, we've got the sidewalk on the one side. There's some nice trees with providing some nice shade down that way. Does anyone know have any experiences walking down this roadway here? We've got sidewalks.
With two sidewalks on both sides, it's not an issue. It's not seriously traveled a lot during certain times of the day, and the sidewalks are quite passable. So I've never found in 20 years of living 100 yards from there that it's a major issue.
Unless you're on the side where the sidewalk stops.
Yeah. Abruptly stops, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to take your life in your hands crossing, or walk out in the street. But yeah, but on the other side, I walk there a lot, and it's really no issues there.
Yep.
All right, let's head down to the intersection. Now, this was one of the intersections included in the designs. So the design included turning the stop bar so that it was straight on to the oncoming traffic. Does anyone have any experiences at this intersection?
That is a good idea, because that would definitely prevent people from sort of not even stopping, just slowing down and going. So I like that design change.
Mr.
Yeah, that one's tough even when the crossing guard is there, but when there's no crossing guard,
yeah,
that's a difficult one. Again, I walk there a lot, and it's, depending on the time of day, it's a game of chicken between you and the cars coming.
Yeah, and it feels like
they don't
the
slow
cars,
down.
exactly. There's a bit of a bend up there,
Yeah,
right?
and even though there's that turn, they come flying and just fly around to continue on Madison.
Yeah.
Now, Lisa, with these type of things coming into the intersection, I know like a lot of towns, Westfield being one, Hoboken being one, they paint their curvatures on, and that's a more cost-effective way of doing things, correct? Because I think, unfortunately, for a small town, resources are limited, and we recognize speeding as an issue on some of our roads. So I think striping comes into a big play, and that's something that we can easily consider on things. So like an intersection like this, I don't know why I'm pointing because nobody can see where I'm pointing on the screen. A painted curvature could be appropriate with the conage that comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a variety of ways that you can do this in all scales of financial spending. So the cheapest would be to paint a curb extension, and you can even have fun with painting that curb extension. You can even involve maybe the elementary school students and have it be part of like some safety program. I know in Trenton,
Diana? Sorry,
Well,
Diana works with our school on safety.
Oh, yeah, right. So you can do colorful curb extensions, and I know they did something beautiful in Trenton too. And we can send you these ideas as part of the final report too. But absolutely, you can do these things temporarily for now with paint, and you can think about maybe curb extensions sometime in the future when the money comes in, if the money comes in.
So Jason would not only be planning the design, painting it, but if you do go that route, then just make sure we have a maintenance program to keep that paint up, because you see our crosswalks aren't painted on a regular basis. So that fades fast. It's a good idea to save money, but we have to make sure we can maintain it.
Right, you might even be able to work with some local community groups or something. There might be a Girl Scout troop or something that wants to work on one of their awards.
I just wanted to add the plastic bollards, like the semi-permanent cones you would install. They're pretty cheap, but they do sometimes get knocked over. So you definitely do have to budget for replacements, about $50 each every few months. So it's not horrible, but you have to think about it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I guess, so if we talked about a curb extension here, there might be some other way to maybe make it more visible here, the pedestrians in the crosswalk, because it seems like cars come flying around both of these corners here.
So, at least in this design, just remember this street also has truck traffic coming out of our neighboring town. So there's tractor trailers, there's commercial vehicles. It's more than just cars on this road. Coming from the direction, in the direction that you're looking at now, mostly.
Oh, okay.
Out of our neighboring town.
Right. Got it. That's good to know. I mean, I don't think that any of the changes we would make it impassable for a truck or anything. But even at this turn here, if you had a truck coming from this way with the plastic bollards, they can usually run over them.
Yeah, and you wouldn't necessarily have a truck come outside of the fire trucks.
Oh, right.
But I'm just pointing it out just in case there's something you could do to either slow them down or make something,
okay,
just for safety reasons.
Maybe those blinking pedestrian signs again.
Yeah, they could be helpful here.
It's also very dark in the evenings, right around.
Oh, this is good to
know. That's a Verizon building. They have some floodlights on the front side of the building, but where these trees are, there's no lights at that intersection.
Right, and it looks like these crosswalks aren't lit.
No, they're not.
Just
right, so light. This Cobra is not over the crosswalk, though, it's over the road. So that's a good point, too. Okay. Now continuing this way a little, we're turning here. This is a really long crosswalk right here.
Yeah.
Um,
And the cars that are, see that car that stopped there, many of them come out over that crosswalk. They stop into the intersection. And you
Right.
gotta swing around them to make that left-hand turn.
right. So any other feedback on this intersection here?
This is a crazy intersection.
It's very bad.
Mhm.
I wouldn't even know what
Good
to
walking or driving.
Yeah. So whatever you could do to make things more manageable here, I would do it, because this is not a good intersection. And the traffic where that white van is going in the mornings, it backs up from North Avenue all the way here. So there's people that can't make a left. And then the people where that car is coming out can't make the left. It gets crazy here.
Right. And it looks like there's no crosswalk coming over South Avenue here.
No.
It's painted. It's very faint. It's like it's pretty choppy.
Right. Right. And I guess there's no curb cut here.
It goes right into like the driveway of that parking lot.
Oh, of the Verizon building.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't really see it in this view, but I walked it this morning and it's very faint. Yeah, it's kind of there.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on like writing huge like stop crossing, locations? Like I've seen towns that have the words like intersection come in and like stop ahead written on the pavement. Does that prevent like people slowing down, or maybe like left turn lanes? Is that something that you guys would do, or is that part of the I guess
I mean, we can definitely look into that. Are you talking about having it on South Avenue here, or?
Kind of on Madison. So like where that black car is, that's technically like a left turn lane only, and then there's another lane. So it's like one lane painted, but technically the people coming down there are in two lanes, and you don't really know where to go. And like the flow of traffic is kind of just.
Right, it gets chaotic because
it's like a free for all.
Right. Well, it's really wide, and so it looks like there's only one lane, but you're saying that people are lining up as if there's two.
That's in the mornings. It's actually 4 lanes. 2 lanes going northbound on Madison, and 2 lanes coming onto South.
Oh.
Yeah, they make it a 4-lane road.
They just decided.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because up ahead under the overpass, there's a light. So the people on the left are making that left-hand turn. So people make a line on the right side of them. So they want to go straight or make a right-hand turn.
Let's face it, if we didn't do that, that traffic would be lined up all the way.
I agree, Lori.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
totally
that's
agree.
like I said, that's just a bad intersection driving or walking there. That one's tough.
Right. If you made it just 1 lane each direction, traffic would be at a standstill.
Yeah.
And even if it were 1 lane on this side, so that you didn't have the left.
Yeah, because a lot of people make that left-hand turn like that car is trying to do, and then to make a right is the way you go to school. So if that was just 1 lane, it would be backed up past North Avenue.
Got it.
The 4 lanes is actually helpful.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds.
Just measuring on Google Maps, it looks like the roadway is 40 feet wide, which is wide enough for 4 lanes. One option can be doing something like you have 2 lanes coming this way, 1 lane going that way, and then it would potentially flip at the next intersection where you have 2 lanes for turns, 1 coming back. And that would still allow for other uses, bike lanes or median or something else. So there's a good amount of space to work with here.
Yeah.
And Lisa, Julie Groff notes that I think near this intersection, maybe as we go down further, that New Jersey Transit buses idle sometimes.
Oh, right, further up here. Okay, well, any last comments on this intersection here before we move on? Okay, so then we'll scoot up to the overpass. Has anybody walked under this overpass at night?
Yes.
It's
what's
not,
the lighting
it's not
like?
well lit.
It's not well lit. There's a few lights that are out
Mhm.
and a few that are on. That just may need to be the bulbs replaced.
Right. It's definitely a dark, and with the dark green on the walls, it's, I think it makes it a bit darker in there. But, I mean,
We
there
have
are,
a list working with NJ Transit right now, and this is on that list for them to get done.
oh, to improve the lighting under there?
Yes.
Excellent. I know some communities are trying to work with NJ Transit to get some artwork installed
We
as
are too.
well.
Yep, our
Yeah.
Arts Commission is working with them.
Excellent. Okay, so then you come up a little bit further and you have this intersection here with just this little tiny roadway here, railroad. What about thoughts on this intersection here?
That one's not, for me, that one's never an issue because I think maybe once a year I see somebody pulling in or out of that street when I happen to be there. There's not a lot of traffic there on
Right.
that
And
side.
what about on
There's
the other side?
There's a lot on the left-hand side there.
Yeah.
That's like a cutoff of Route 28.
Mm,
And it's kind of a blind turn coming around that brick building. So people kind of inch out through the stop sign.
Now you'd think
Oh,
living
right.
here this long, I would know this, but when you're on 28, you can't make a right there, can you?
You have to
Yeah.
come down this street.
Right,
can't
you
make a
have to
right.
come down that way.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't make a right onto Madison.
Well, you can. There's no sign saying you can.
Well, yeah.
You can
Yeah,
make
that's
a
why
right.
because I never do. I always cut through.
Yeah. A lot of traffic comes from the west down this road. And years ago, those hedges on the left were real high, so we got the guy to cut them down
Oh,
to make it
excellent.
visible. But it's still not a very good. And the road is in bad shape. The curb's in bad shape. It's not a friendly place to cross.
Yeah.
Right. And it looks like cars are pulling up into the crosswalk probably to see the oncoming traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And there's definitely some ramp issues.
There's also down that, if you go left behind that brick building, that one way, there's also an auto mechanic shop there. So there's always a lot of cars parked, as you can see there,
Right.
on that street. So there's just a lot of obstacles between kind of dodging to get down that street. And then, as Tremaine said, kind of peeking around that corner to get visibility to turn onto Madison.
Right.
And Lisa, the bus stop is in that road right there to your right a little bit. A little bit more.
On this road?
Yep.
Right in front of this house.
Oh,
Right
right
there.
here.
Yeah, that's technically the
Oh,
bus
this
stop.
is the bus stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this street's in bad shape. This is not a good street.
Right. And what about, you say cars are lined up, they line up all the way down back to South Avenue from the light here when they're school?
It can be, yes.
Are there issues with blocking this intersection and people trying to get across the crosswalks?
Yes.
Okay.
What if we painted the intersection? Like that, like some towns have that brown or like a colorized. Again, but it goes back to Ken's concern of maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah, some towns have even painted murals in their intersections too, but we can't put murals everywhere.
Why not?
we could maybe if you have enough enough art funding. But that is one option. I mean, in Red Bank, that's what they did because they were having issues at an intersection where people weren't stopping for pedestrians, and so they painted a mural in the intersection to make it like visually striking for drivers passing through that they shouldn't be stopping in the intersection and that they should watch out for pedestrians. So I don't know how anyone else feels about murals on the intersections, but it's certainly an option.
So it's just an idea.
Wouldn't murals distract people from looking at the road, though?
I mean, so the one in Red Bank is really simple. It's just green with a big sun in the middle.
Oh.
It's a lot like a bike lane. It's like the green of a bike lane. So it's just like it does grab your attention, but I think it grabs your attention in a good way, not in like a distracting.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so any other comments on this intersection here? Before we head on down to our last little piece here. And there's definitely some driveway issues along the way with sidewalks that don't continue.
Yeah.
And a lot of, yeah, and a lot of missing ADA ramps or truncated domes. So how about this intersection here?
I mean, my experience, you have a crossing guard there and there are lights, so it's manageable. I mean, it's a lot of traffic, obviously, but I think it's manageable, but I haven't had to walk my kids to school in quite a few years, so.
Yeah, you're right, Ken. Between the lights and when school's in session, the crossing guard, that one's not bad.
Okay. It looks like there are pedestrian signals at all 4 corners. I'm not sure if they count down or anything, though.
They count down.
Right. Okay. And so cars aren't really making a right-hand turn here onto Madison Ave. It sounds like they cut through the other road.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
they can
make the right here, but they normally go through the other road.
Yeah.
Yeah, legally they can make a right,
But they don't usually, right? So that would make it a little bit safer, at least for pedestrians crossing on Madison on this side, at least.
But if you're a vehicle trying to make a left on North Washington onto South Madison, going back towards the bridge, this throughway on the side can be difficult for a sight line for a car trying to make a left. I only know that by experience. I've only had one car accident, and it's been in this intersection.
Oh, no. So you're making the left from Madison.
Yeah, and the bend, just the sight line for vehicles is difficult anyway. So
Yeah.
because if you're making a left, I'm pointing to the screen, still thinking everybody can see me. Where that where that gray vehicle is, cars are coming onto the right of them to continue down North Avenue. So if you're making a left, it's easy to not, it's difficult to see the car coming around that bend.
Oh, okay. All right, so there are some challenges at this intersection, but it seems to be, and it definitely needs a little bit of maintenance, it looks like, in terms of crosswalk painting.
So the one thing, Route 28, that's a state highway, so we really can make the state or request that the state paint these on a regular basis. Now, they won't paint the one you're looking at on South Madison, but they should paint the ones crossing North Avenue on a regular basis. Yeah, that one.
Right.
Because it's their road, so they should be painting these.
Yeah. And actually, this one looks fairly new over here.
Because it was paved recently.
Oh, right. Okay. It does look, yeah. And as part of the report too, any recommendations that we have that involve other jurisdictions like the county or the state, we'll include them in the conversations too. We'll give them an opportunity to review our recommendations. Where they take it from there, though, depends on their situation. Okay. So
I have a quick question about this intersection. In intersections like this, where people often make left-hand turns, although there's no designated lane for it, do you ever find that it causes more backup to add a left turn signal in the traffic light?
Oh, to change this signal here to include a left-hand turn.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Jason was saying. I think a lot of times at this intersection and the one previous down the other way, people are paused to make left-hand turns, and then the traffic next to them, a lot of people are going around. I think sometimes it gets dangerous for pedestrians when people might try to go around people, not realizing that they're waiting for pedestrians to cross and that kind of thing. So I just didn't know if I know it's probably an increased cost and we would have to go to the state and whatnot, but I just didn't know if making more official left turn designation helps or hinders the situation.
Well, again, like you said, it would involve the state because that's a state road.
Yeah. Okay.
But we could look into it and maybe include it as a recommendation if it seems like it could help. It's true though that when you have a wide road like this and you have someone stop for pedestrian, if there's room for someone to go around them who doesn't realize the pedestrian is there, it does create a pretty dangerous situation. But yes, we can definitely consider a recommendation for a left-hand turn.
Yeah, so just to add, if it improves traffic or not, DOT, they would do a traffic study to determine that. It really depends on the number of vehicles making the turn. And the next closest signal is pretty far away. So usually they take that into account as well. So the report would say, as Lisa said, recommend the state look into a left turn signal. And then you as a township would have to make a formal request to them, and then they would put it on a list, and eventually they would do it. It takes a while, but they do look into those requests.
Right. Okay, so any other comments on this intersection here? So it seems like if we want to just go over some of the recommendations we've put together, so some no parking striping along near a few of the intersections, maybe even some murals, extending the curbs a little bit. Let's see what else. We can look at the diagonal parking along by the school, maybe come up with a few different options for ways to make that a little bit safer. Maybe including some type of bicycle infrastructure, or rethinking how that parking is designed. I mean, we'll certainly be recommending improving a lot of the curb ramps, making sure that they have truncated domes and that they're facing into the intersection, into the crosswalk and not the center of the intersection. What else do we have? We can consider the four-way stop at Walnut, and look into different ways to slow the traffic down there. Oh, and the crosswalk signs that are, I saw them along the way, just on the side of the road a few times too. So maybe more permanent crosswalk signage so that people don't have the opportunity to move the signage. Yeah, maybe dealing with some lighting issues along the way, and maybe rearranging, perhaps adding a mural in that one intersection that we're looking at right now, a little bit further up. All right, so there's a lot of great ideas. Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, earlier in the chat, Bill Neary from Keep Middlesex Moving mentioned remote drop-off locations away from school. Wondered if Bill wanted to talk a little bit more about what that would entail, or what work he's done related to that in the past. Because definitely it seems like one of the issues here is the congestion because of school drop-off.
Am I still on mute?
We got you.
Okay. Basically, it's I'm looking at these pictures. The firehouse has a big parking lot. If the parents just dropped the kid off and then continued on their way, the kids could walk the last couple thousand feet to the school. If there's a park someplace near, or even any other parking space, would be easy for the parents to get off the road and let the kids walk the last couple thousand feet to relieve the traffic, and at the same time let the kids get the added benefits of walking to school for a couple thousand feet. And that's a simple solution to some of the congestion at the schools without causing any major hassles, because the kids are walking anyway. They might as well walk the last couple thousand feet. And we could work with any locations in any of the schools to try and design a place that, whether it's a shopping center, a park, or just a firehouse with a parking lot where a parent can park safely off the street, drop their kid off, get them on the sidewalk, and let them walk the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Do you organize like walking school buses from there?
Oh, absolutely. We have walking school bus, we have safe routes to school programs, we have bicycle safety programs. We do all of those type of programs for any of the schools that are interested. We've worked in Dunellen in the past, especially with Diana and different things that they've done in Dunellen. We have a distracted driving program for high school students. We have all kinds of safety programs like that. But I'm thinking that right now the biggest issue at the school is the congestion early in the morning and late in the afternoon. And if the parents want to take advantage of the fact that Safe Routes to School program is an easy way to solve some of these dangerous situations. Because at the school itself, with the number of cars backing up especially, is a dangerous spot for kids to be at. If they can avoid having to be in that location, it'd be a lot easier for them. And to get to learn better and get the fresh air while walking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
And we're happy to work with any school district in Middlesex County with that. We have sent a letter to all the superintendents telling them they'd be happy to sit down and talk to them about and finding a location for these type of walking areas.
Yeah, we can definitely include that as a recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Bill, you're right. You do have the firehouse, and then looking at this picture, if you continue straight down this road, the Knights of Columbus is on the left-hand side. So you would avoid any traffic making this turn to get to go right there.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Drop the kids off, let them walk.
And I'm sure the Knights of Columbus would cooperate with us.
Well, they're not probably being used early in the morning or late in the afternoon.
That lot's never full. Yeah.
Right.
And then that way people wouldn't have to continue down and fight the traffic. They could come in from where that van is coming in, and there's another side entrance to that parking lot where that garage is in the back there that they could just pull into and avoid traffic.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So I think, do we have any other comments, any other ideas, or maybe some issues we didn't touch on?
Well, my other suggestion, just to throw that in, is to have bike racks closer to the school. Perhaps if you don't have them with that narrow sidewalk along the field someplace, put some bike racks in there. We're also looking at programs. Perhaps Dunellen might be interested in looking into a program of gifting. We'll give you some bike racks that you can use, portable bike racks. They might be able to put in different locations and make it easier for them too.
Oh, wow.
Bill, I will be in contact with you.
Also, this is Diana. A couple of years, I don't know if you can hear me. A couple of years ago, we did a bike to school program with Faber, and we built portable bike racks, which are probably in the garage at Faber and need to get pulled out. So need to reach out to Mr. Labisco. But at any rate, they're made out of pallets and they are on wheels, and you can just go set them up and the kids can come and put their bikes in them. So there is an avenue right there. It'd be great, you know, certainly if Bill, if you've got bike racks, wonderful. But we do have some, we just got to get them out so the kids can use them.
Diana, you know how small we are. We're looking for sponsors to buy them, but we're working on it.
All right, well, it's great to know that they've got bike racks available. And then the next step would be just making it so that the kids can bike to the school.
And one final thing before you wrap up on this whole thing. We also have a ride sharing program. If parents want to try to look at our ride sharing program, they might be able to find a way to take not just their kid to school, but their neighbor's kid and a neighbor's kid, and take 2 or 3 kids at school at the same time. Might be a lot easier to reduce traffic also. If they all take ride sharing and take turns every day, instead of driving 1 kid, drive 2 or 3 kids. We can help match them with computers.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that would definitely be a way to decrease the traffic heading through these intersections. Yeah. So anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to? No?
Nope.
All right. Well, I think we're all set. So, Anne, do you want to talk about our next steps?
Yes. So, do you have the final slide?
I do.
Okay. All right. So, as Lisa mentioned, we recorded this meeting today, and creating a web page on the Sustainable Jersey website where you can rewatch this video. It'll also provide you a link with the slides that we went through that Ashna and Lisa talked through. And then there's also going to be a link again to the audit form. And we're asking you, if you can, to maybe do this walk with the audit form in hand and send those to me via email by August 3rd. So we want to give you a little bit of time to walk the corridor and provide comments. You know, I think one of the things on the form that we did talk about today is sort of driver behavior, and that's really helpful to us because that's something that the folks at VTC can't really see on the data that's available through looking at the Google Maps. But you know, the information that you provided about where people park and how they speed or line up 4 lanes wide, you know, all that is really helpful to understanding the context. So if you give that information to us by August 3rd, that'd be great. And then the next step after that is for us to prepare a summary of that information and develop a draft report. Lisa showed you at the beginning some of the reports that we did in the last round, and we will be preparing a report for you. But before that report, Dunellen asked for another public meeting just to review the information that was provided through the walk audits, as well as some of the initial changes to the road corridor. So we'll schedule that sometime in September, I believe, is when we're thinking, late August, early September. And that will give you a chance. That would be a shorter webinar, but just to review what we've learned and then think about some of the proposed design changes. So I think that's it. Anything else that I missed?
No, thank you all for coming and participating and giving us your feedback.
Yes, you hung in there the whole time.
No snoring.
Absolutely. All right.
Very much
thank you all.
appreciated. Thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
night, everyone.
Have a good night.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.